Are headed to the live line. We're Senior Director of Government Affairs, National Taxpayers Union. Tommy Aiello is standing by to talk about the Senate versus the House big, beautiful bill and what the differences are. Hi, Tommy.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So we still need to pass this bill. It has to happen.
Yeah, that's right. We do have to pass the bill. The House did their part last month, and they passed the bill on a Republican-only basis, and it was a real big step in the right direction towards delivering on President Trump's campaign promise to make the TCJA, the tax cuts, permanent from his first term. The Senate, we're expecting a vote on the floor this week, potentially as soon as Wednesday. They're still hashing out some of the details, but either way, it's still progress in the right direction, and I think at the end of the day, it's something all taxpayers will be happy with.
I think we've been pretty well informed from Rand Paul of the parts that he is upset with, including raising the debt ceiling and that sort of thing, but what is it about the House's version that the Senate has the biggest problem with?
Yeah, so there's a few things. Obviously, Rand Paul's desire to remove the increase to the $5 trillion increase to the debt limit is a big concern for him, and our high level of debt is a concern for all of us. Mm-hmm. But what the House bill does, it's a really good bill, right? It makes the president's tax cuts permanent. It includes a number of his campaign promises, like no tax on tips, Social Security, and overtime. And it phases out a lot of the Green New Deal tax credits that push wind, solar, hydro, all of these things that make energy more expensive. So what the House bill did is it basically phased all of those out, beginning, I think, in 2 years. So it's a really important provision. But unfortunately, it included some missteps as well. It didn't make a lot of the pro-growth tax provisions permanent, which is going to hit economic growth. And then it also increased the state and local tax deduction to $40,000. Right now it's capped at $10,000. And keeping that $10,000 cap is important because if you raise it, it's basically just an in-kind contribution. It's a direct financial contribution, actually, to some of the wealthiest taxpayers in the country, particularly those in New York, California, and New Jersey.
But if I may, the House Republicans who voted for this would not vote for it unless that provision was in there.
That's exactly right. So it's a little bit of a tricky game. Kudos to House Speaker Mike Johnson for having to navigate this whole, political minefield. Where on the Freedom Caucus side, they wanted a complete repeal of the green energy tax credits, something some of the moderates didn't want to vote for. And then you have some of the moderates pushing this $40,000 SALT cap and saying that they don't want to eliminate the Green New Deal tax credit. So it was a tricky balance that the Speaker had to play. But, at the end of the day, he was able to move that bill out of the House and land it in the Senate. That way the Senate could negotiate what they wanted to do. So it's still a bit of a political tug of war at the moment, but it's all progress in the right direction.
So how's the needle moving, though? Or where are we at? Because I know Democrats are going to vote against anything the Republicans put up, even if it's a good idea. But they have to jump, the hopscotch rope in order to get. They're going to have to give the Democrats something they want in order to get them to vote for it, other than Fetterman, who apparently had an awakening and rubbed a couple brain cells together and he's making sense all of a sudden. So where are we with that, the barometer in the Senate? What do we need to, what do they want in order to send it back to the House? And when it gets to the House, I'm sorry, Tommy, this is a lot, but when it gets to the House, are these, I can't say those words on the air, what are these people who are fighting for the gift to New Yorkers who pay higher taxes? What are they going to do when they no longer get that for it? Are they going to vote against it and then it's going to not pass the House? Where are we at?
Yeah, so right now, because President Trump won the White House and delivered Republican majorities in both houses of Congress, they're using a special process called budget reconciliation. Essentially, it's just a way to get around the rules where you only need a simple majority in the Senate. You're able to bypass the filibuster. This is what we did in 2017 where we delivered tax reform. So in this regard, we're still doing what we did back then, and it makes it a little bit easier to get what, what we would like to see done, because we don't need to rely on Democratic votes. You don't need to have a single Democrat vote for this. So what, Senate Majority Leader Thune is thinking is he's not even thinking about what the Democrats are saying or caring about the bill, because they don't really need their votes. Now, when it comes to Senate Republicans, exactly. And just like what Speaker Johnson had to deal with, is there's a lot of different personalities and there's a lot of different political demands. So, one thing we hear about all the time is Medicaid. And unfortunately, some Republicans are afraid to touch Medicaid. And the way we would look at it is the bill strengthens Medicaid. It removes 1.4 million illegal immigrants and non-citizens off of government health care. And it says, hey, if you want government health care, you need to work a minimum of 80 hours a month, which I think is a relatively reasonable request for someone that's receiving government taxpayer. Yes, that's exactly right. It's very, very minimal. And, take those two changes into account and then a whole bunch of other changes, you're able to find $1.5 trillion in savings over the next 10 years.
Right.
It's a small savings, but it's still significant. And I would just say right now, Senate Republicans are talking about cutting taxes, cutting government spending, and making government just work better and more efficient. And there's only one party in America that's talking about all three of those things, and it's the Republican Party, not the Democrats in Congress.
We do have some rhinos in there, though, that are, we all know what rhino stands for. So they are the ones I'm worried about. I am literally worried about them just, flipping their nose at this, because they only want to serve their constituency. They don't care what's best for the country. They're there to get reelected, and they drive me crazy, because this is a good thing. And touching Medicaid in the way that you said it is exactly what it is. There are some very able-bodied people who are on disability because they broke their nose, so they think they can never do another job again as long as they live. I'm sorry, but unless you're mentally ill, disabled, like a quadriplegic or a war veteran or a tiny child, or an elderly person, or a mother with a lot of children who just can't go to work because there's nowhere to take the kids, you shouldn't be on Medicaid. So everyone's like, expand Medicaid to everyone. No. And I'm just going to tell you, Tommy, I don't have health insurance because I can't afford it. They've priced me out because their numbers just keep going higher. So I concierge because it's the way that I get health care. And more Americans are getting tired of paying these high premiums. So I think this is a good lesson for insurance companies as well, that your doctors probably don't want to get the lesser payment of Medicaid. Maybe if you lowered the health insurance costs, more people would get on health insurance. We get back on track.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Look, Medicaid is becoming a $1 trillion a year program. It is becoming unsustainable. And what does that mean? It just puts more pressure on the federal government to balance, to find ways to make up the cost of it. So the way we're looking at it is these reasonable changes to Medicaid, expanded cost sharing with the states, removing, illegals from the program, and then just asking people to work a minimum of 80 hours a month is a very reasonable thing. And, I had the unfortunate honor of watching the markup in the House Energy and Commerce Committee last month. And, unfortunately, there were protests when they were voting on the bill, and all these people were saying, you're taking away my health care. A lot of them were people with disabilities. There were older people in the room. And, I just couldn't help but laugh, because none of these people, if they're on Medicaid, will lose their coverage, because there's these built-in exemptions for people with disabilities, older Americans, and other people with exemptions that the bill explicitly lays out. So at the end of the day, the changes that Republicans are making here, it's not taking away health care from grandma or, parents with young children. It really is just about making the program more sustainable and to target those who actually and genuinely need the health care.
And the only problem I have with this is that the only thing that's permanent is the tax cuts for small business. These other things go away if Trump leaves. If Vance gets in there, then we'll be fine. But I don't like that these could be these wonderful things that we enjoy so much, and then boom, a Democrat wins and we're screwed again. That's the part that scares me. I wish we could make all of this permanent, but I have had so many conversations with people who are talking about Social Security. They're like, it's going to be gone by 2035, so you better have a plan. I'm like, I don't have time to make a plan. I'm counting on Social Security, and it better stink and be there, or heads are going to roll. So I don't think we have a problem with Social Security if we fix Medicaid and we don't tax Social Security. I think then we're good.
Yeah, the reconciliation bill, because the way the rules are set out is we can't even touch Social Security. So even when you hear about these, crazy Democrat attack ads saying that Republicans are cutting Social Security, don't believe it. Does not touch Social Security. Now, what the House and Senate bill does is it includes an exemption on income for Social Security, and I think it adds a new deduction for it, or increases the standard deduction for those on Social Security.
Yeah.
So, it'll definitely help seniors. Now, to your point about making Social Security work for everybody and making it last for as long as possible, I'm sure you saw this report out last week that said the fund could be insolvent just within the next 10 years. So it is a very real concern. And we need to make sure it lasts for everybody. But, I think we do that by, one, bringing more Americans onto payrolls. That way they can contribute into the fund. We do that by, obviously, extending and making permanent the Trump tax cuts, and including a lot of these pro-growth tax provisions that will make small businesses and big businesses a little bit stronger, so they can hire more workers, raise wages, and then you have this cycle of economic prosperity that will, of course, benefit the Social Security Trust Fund.
Yeah, well, a lot of people had life happened, and everything that they planned for in their retirement, they lost everything, whether it was in a wildfire or a hurricane or a death in the family or whatever the case may be, and they are left counting on Social Security and Medicaid when they get older. And some people are living quite nicely on it here at the age of 32, which is rather horrifying to me, and greedy and lazy and everything else. But with the projected economic growth from the cut in taxes, our take-home pay is going to be, we're going to be living large compared to what we're living right now. And that means we're going to spend more money and save more money, and that's going to help everybody.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's what happened in the first Trump term after we passed the 2017 tax bill. And I think we're expecting similar things this time around, right? You have a lot of those small business provisions made permanent. I think the Senate bill actually increases the small business pass-through deduction by about 3 percentage points. Both the House and the Senate increase the standard deduction, lock in those lower tax rates. Mm-hmm. That way it just gives all Americans the certainty they need that their taxes won't go up at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. And that's what will happen is if Congress sits on their hands and does nothing, Americans will be hit with a $4.5 trillion tax increase starting January 1st.
And
we can't let that happen under a Trump administration with a Republican Congress. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think we'll end up passing a really comprehensive bill that not only locks in Trump tax cuts, but it builds on it in a really pro-growth way that can benefit everybody.
Well, he clearly knows how to run a business, so he's running the country like a business. That's exactly what we needed. And, if I get an extra $3,900 in take-home pay, I'm going to pay off everything I own really, really fast so that if I do have to face a Social Security impact, I will be able to still function because I will be able to put money away to prepare for the doom and gloom that will come under the Democrats. So where do people go to learn more about this, Tommy?
Sure. You can follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, X, I guess it is, and Facebook, NTU. NTU stands for, of course, National Taxpayers Union, or you can go to our website, ntu.org. We, post things all about the Trump tax cuts and then ways to find budgetary savings throughout the budget. So we're more than just on radio. We do it all.
Yeah, and just remember, they are playing volleyball right now. It's going back and forth. So the Senate needs to hurry up because we want this done by July 4th. It would be a beautiful thing to have it done by then.
Right.
But to get it to the president's desk with everything else that's going on, a lot of people don't understand that this president can multitask and work more hours a day than most people half his age. So if anybody's going to do it, it's him.
That's right.
All right. Tommy Aiello, he is Senior Director, Government Affairs, National Taxpayers Union, NTU.org. Make sure you check him out. The House will get the bill back when the Senate's done meandering through it. And then the House will probably quickly say yes to what the Senate said. Then it'll go past the Senate to the president's desk and we'll be done. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.